Welcome to the Silver Report Uncut. Now, somebody brought this up yesterday, and it's very interesting. Whenever you go and try to look this up, what you find as far as videos, in fact, the video has all been scrubbed from the internet. All that remains in the video that is supposed to be the same speech is not the same speech whatsoever. So I wanted to go over this Traficant speech because I think it's a very important part of history that must be accessible to people. So this is from Representative James Traficant Jr. of Ohio when he addressed the House of Representatives March 17, 1993. He begins, "Mr. Speaker, we are here now in Chapter 11. Members of Congress are official trustees presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in world history, the U.S. government. We are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future. There are some who say it is a coroner's report that will lead to our demise. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9, 1933. 48 Stat. 1. Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt, being bankrupt and insolvent, H.J.R. 192, 73rd Congress M. Session, June 5, 1933. Joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause dissolved the sovereign authority of the United States in the official capacities of all United States government offices, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. The receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers, via the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. All United States offices, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status in name only under the emergency war powers. With the constitutional Republican form of government now dissolved, the receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. This new form of government is known as a democracy, being an established socialist communist order under a new governor for America. This act was instituted and established by transferring and or placing the office of the Secretary of Treasury to that of the Governor of the International Monetary Fund. Public Law 94-564, page 8, Section H.R. 13955 reads in part, quote, "The U.S. Secretary of Treasury receives no compensation for representing the United States," unquote. So the Federal Reserve System is a sovereign power structure separate and distinct from the federal United States government. The Federal Reserve is a maritime lender and or maritime insurance underwriter to the federal United States, operating exclusively under Admiralty maritime law. The lender or underwriter bears the risks, and the maritime law compelling specific performance in paying the interest or premiums are the same. Assets of the debtor can also be hypothecated. To pledge something as a security without taking possession of it, as security by the lender or underwriter. The Federal Reserve Act stipulated that the interest on the debt was to be paid in gold. There was no stipulation in the Federal Reserve Act for ever paying the principal. Prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear, allodial title to property, free and clear of any liens or mortgages until the Federal Reserve Act 1913 hypothecated all property within the federal United States to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, in which the trustees held legal title. The U.S. citizen was registered as a beneficiary of the trust via his or her birth certificate. In 1933, the federal United States hypothecated all of the present and future properties, assets, and labor of their subjects. The 14th Amendment, U.S. citizen to the Federal Reserve System. In return, the Federal Reserve System agreed to extend the Federal United States Corporation all the credit it needed. Like any other debtor, the federal United States government had to assign collateral and security to their creditors as a condition of the loan. Since the federal United States didn't have any assets, they assigned the private property of their economic slaves, the United States citizens, as a collateral against the unpayable federal debt. They also pledged the unincorporated federal territories, national parks, forests, birth certificates, and nonprofit organizations as collateral against the federal debt. All has already been transferred as payment to the international bankers. Unwittingly, America has returned to its pre-American Revolution feudal roots, whereby all land is held by a sovereign and the common people had no rights to hold a loyal title to property. Once again, we the people are the tenants and sharecroppers renting our own property from a sovereign in the guise of the Federal Reserve Bank. We the people have exchanged one master for another. This has been going on for over 80 years without the informed knowledge of the American people, without a voice protesting loud enough. Now, it's easy to grasp why America is fundamentally bankrupt. Why don't more people own their properties outright? Why are 90% of Americans mortgaged to the hilt and have little or no assets after all debts and liabilities have been paid? Why does it feel like you are working harder and getting less and less? We are reaping what we have sown, and the results of our harvest is a painful bankruptcy and a foreclosure on American property, precious liberties, and a way of life. Few of our elected representatives in Washington, D.C. have dared to tell the truth. The federal United States is bankrupt. Our children will inherit this unpayable debt and the tyranny to enforce paying it. America has become completely bankrupt in world leadership, financial credit, and its reputation for courage, vision, and human rights. This is an undeclared economic war, bankruptcy, and economic slavery of the most corrupt order. Wake up, America. Take back our country. So it's interesting that the man in 2002 was arrested and put in jail as a part of some sort of corruption scandal. And it's no surprise that he spent 7 years there, only to die while in jail. He represented Youngstown, Ohio from 1985 to 2002. He was reelected by the people, the voters who put him into office, and it was only being framed for corruption in 2002 that he would be expelled from Congress and spend the last 7 years of his life in prison. These are little-known facts that most people are entirely in the dark about, they're completely unaware of, and it's something that cannot be brought out into the light. Some of the most powerful words, and I'll read it just one last time, quote, "We are reaping what we have sown. The results of our harvest is a painful bankruptcy and a foreclosure on American property, precious liberties, and a way of life. Few of our elected representatives in Washington, D.C. have dared to tell the truth. The federal United States is bankrupt. Our children will inherit this unpayable debt and the tyranny to enforce paying it," unquote. So it's words like that that will get you expelled from Congress. And we wonder why there's not any real representatives who ever run for office who ever make it on the main debate stage. There's never any real representatives of the people's interest. Because when anybody ever stands up against the true heart of a problem, which is corrupt, foreign banking cabal that is running everything in our lives, that owns our houses, that is stripping the wealth out of the United States, if anybody were to ever stand up to speak out against it, regardless if they had been duly elected by the people and the citizens in this great republic, there are other means for being able to silence dissenting voices. It reminds me of some of the words of John F. Kennedy that he said just secretly about secret societies and secret oaths and secret proceedings, but he said something. He said, "No rumor is printed. No information is circulated about this. No rumor is printed. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised." So also in his speech, he talked about covert means being used by people. That is secret means. That it's hidden power structure is invisible to most people because they largely believe the lies they are told. And if you believe that that is somehow true, ask yourself, why was this man, after giving such a speech in Congress, removed? If it is not true, why such a big deal to go and sweep him away and silence his voice, to be able to prevent people and the citizens of the United States to understand just what is going on in our nation? But you know, it does not have to be this way. It does not have to be this way. I know that was kind of long, but I believe that this is something that needs to be preserved for the modern age, for modern history. And it's a shame that whenever you go to look up this video, it is scrubbed from the internet. And the only video that is put in place under the same name, because if you look up this speech under the same name, James Traficant Jr. addressing the House of Representatives March 17, 1993, you will be presented with an entirely different video of him speaking, which is not even on the same day because he's not wearing the same clothes that he was wearing when he actually gave this speech. So that's very interesting that the only thing presented, it comes from C-SPAN submitted by a private individual. And it's an entirely different subject, still covering things on the IRS, but an entirely different subject. Those kind of things are the reason that you really should be paying attention. That's why it's important. I thank you guys so much for joining us here at the Silver Report Uncut. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe, like the videos, share the videos, get the word out. I thank you so much for stopping by. As always, stay safe.